Captain Jake Martinez was drinking his morning coffee when the message arrived. The screen on his desk flashed red 3 times, which meant it was urgent and coded. He set down his cup and opened the file. The words made him read it twice. Then, a 3rd time. Pete Johnson was calling for help from the asteroid belt. Pete ran a small mining operation out there, looking for rare metals in the rocks that floated between Mars and Jupiter. Good man, honest worker, never asked for help unless he really needed it. But this message was different. Pete said he found something big, something that should not exist. Jake called his crew together on the bridge of their ship, the Ranger. His first officer was Dan Wright, a young man with sharp eyes who never missed details. The science officer was Dr. Lisa Parker, who knew more about old things than anyone else in the fleet. Pete Johnson sent us this, Jake said, playing the message on the main screen. Pete's face appeared, but he looked scared. His voice shook as he spoke. Jake, you need to get out here fast. We were mining asteroid XK739 when our drills hit something. Hard. Real hard. Took us 3 days to cut through it, and when we did... Pete stopped talking and looked around, like someone might be watching. It's not an asteroid, Jake. There's a ship inside this rock, a big one, bigger than anything I've ever seen. And Jake, it's human. The message ended. Dan Wright was the first to speak. Could be a trick. Pirates sometimes. Not Pete, Jake said quickly. I've known him for 15 years. If he says, there's a ship in that rock, there's a ship. Dr. Parker leaned forward in her chair. Captain, if there really is a human ship out there, we need to know which one. Our records show every ship that was ever built. Jake nodded. Set course for the asteroid belt. Maximum speed. The trip took 2 days. When they arrived at Pete's mining station, Jake could see why his friend was scared. The asteroid was huge, maybe 2 miles long, but now it had a big hole cut into one side, and lights were shining from inside. Pete met them at the airlock. His face was pale and his hands shook when he talked. Thank God you're here, Jake. This thing, it's giving me the creeps. They put on their spacesuits and followed Pete into the asteroid. The tunnel his crew had cut was narrow and dark, but at the end it opened into something impossible. There was a ship inside the rock. Not a small ship, but a massive warship that stretched out of sight in both directions. The hull was black metal that seemed to eat the light from their flashlights. Strange symbols were carved into the metal, symbols that hurt to look at. How long has this been here? Dr. Parker asked. We're not sure, Pete said. The ice around, it is old. Real old, maybe 200 years or more. Jake walked closer to the hull. There were markings near what looked like an airlock. He cleaned away the ice and dirt with his glove. Letters appeared. UHS NEMESIS. UHS Nemesis, he read out loud. Dr. Parker made a sound like she couldn't breathe. That's impossible. What's impossible? Jake asked. The UHS Nemesis, she said slowly. I know that name. I studied it in school. But Jake, that ship was destroyed 200 years ago. There are records, pictures. It was blown up during the treaty wars. Dan Wright was scanning the hull with his equipment. Captain, I'm getting some weird readings. This metal, it's not like anything in our database. And there's still power running through the ship. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. Power? After 200 years? That's what the scanner says. Pete pointed to another section of the hull. We found this too. There was a hole in the ship's side, but not from damage. It looked like a doorway that had been melted open from the inside. The edges were smooth and clean. Did you go inside? Jake asked. Pete shook his head fast. No way. We heard sounds coming from in there like machines running. And Jake, sometimes we heard voices. Dr. Parker was studying the strange symbols on the hull. These markings, they're not in any human language I know, but they feel familiar somehow. Jake made his decision. We're going aboard. Dan, get the portable lights and scanning equipment. Lisa, bring your analysis tools. Pete, you and your crew stay here. You sure about this, Captain? Dan asked. Jake looked at the dark opening in the ship's hull. Something about this felt wrong, but he had to know the truth. The Nemesis was one of our greatest warships. If it really survived, we need to find out how and why. They entered the ship through the melted opening. Their lights showed a corridor that was impossibly clean. No dust, no damage, just smooth walls that seemed to go on forever. The air was breathable, which should have been impossible after so long in space. Their footsteps echoed strangely, like the sound was being changed somehow. The walls had more of those strange symbols, and Jake noticed they seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them. "Captain," Dan whispered, "look at this." He was pointing his scanner at the wall. The readings showed that the metal was older than it should be, but also somehow new, like it existed in two different times at once. They found the bridge after walking for what felt like hours. It was huge, with stations for dozens of crew members. But what made Jake stop breathing was the man sitting in the captain's chair. He was perfectly preserved, like he had died yesterday. His uniform was clean and undamaged. On his chest was a name tag that read, Captain Roy Bennett. Dr. Parker checked the body carefully. "Jake, this man died 200 years ago, but he looks like he died 5 minutes ago." Dan found the ship's computer system and managed to turn it on. The screen flickered to life, showing the ship's log entries. The last one was dated exactly 200 years ago. Jake played the final log entry. Captain Bennett's voice filled the bridge, clear and strong. "This is Captain Roy Bennett of the UHS Nemesis. Final log entry. The Galactic Council has made their decision. They say our ship is too dangerous to exist. They're using some kind of technology I don't understand. They're not just destroying us. They're removing us from time itself." The recording paused and they could hear explosions in the background. "If anyone finds this log, know that we didn't surrender. We fought until the end. But they have powers, beyond our understanding. They can rewrite reality itself. The Nemesis will be erased from history like we never existed at all." Another pause, longer this time. "But maybe we can hide. The quantum shielding might protect us from their erasure. If it works, if someone finds us someday, remember this. We were banned by the universe itself. And if we ever return, they'll try to ban us again." The recording ended with the sound of Captain Bennett's final breath. Jake, Dan, and Dr. Parker stood in silence, trying to understand what they had heard. The Nemesis hadn't been destroyed in battle. It had been erased from existence by something called the Galactic Council. But somehow it had survived and now it was active again. Jake Martinez knew he should report what they found to Earth Command right away. But something told him to wait. The way Captain Bennett talked about being erased from history made him think twice about who he could trust. Instead, he called his best engineer, Sam Davis, to come out to the asteroid. Sam was older than the rest of the crew, with gray hair and hands that could fix anything. If anyone could get the Nemesis running again, it was Sam. While they waited for Sam to arrive, Jake and his team explored more of the ship. The corridors seemed to go on forever, filled with rooms they had never seen on any human vessel. Some rooms had equipment that looked like it came from the future. Other rooms were empty except for that strange humming sound that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Dr. Parker found something interesting in what looked like a library. Books and data files were stored there, but when she tried to read them, the words changed on the page. "It's like the information doesn't want to be understood," she told Jake. Dan Wright discovered that his scanning equipment worked differently on the ship. Sometimes it would show rooms that weren't there when they looked with their eyes. Other times it showed empty space where walls clearly stood. "This ship doesn't follow normal rules," Dan said, shaking his head. "It's like it exists in more than one place at the same time." When Sam Davis arrived, he spent hours looking at the ship's engine room. What he found there made him call Jake down immediately. "Captain, you need to see this," Sam said, his voice full of wonder and fear. "This isn't human technology." "Well, it is, but it isn't." Jake looked at the massive engines that filled the room. They were bigger than anything he had ever seen, but they were also beautiful in a way that hurt his eyes. The metal seemed to flow like water and lights moved through it like living things. "What do you mean it is and isn't human?" Jake asked. Sam pointed to a panel covered in symbols. These markings here are instructions. I can read some of them because they're in English. But they're talking about things that shouldn't be possible. Listen to this, he read from the panel. Quantum phase drive allows ship to exist in multiple dimensions. Reality anchor prevents erasure from timeline. Weapons can fire through time itself. Jake felt cold. Weapons that fire through time? That's what it says. But Jake, here's the really scary part. According to these instructions, this technology came from something called the Void Nebula. They found artifacts out there and reverse engineered them. Dr. Parker had been listening quietly. Now she spoke up. I know about the Void Nebula. It was in the outer rim, past all the colonies. But it disappeared about 200 years ago. Just vanished from all the star maps. Maybe it didn't disappear, Dan said quietly. Maybe it was erased too. Sam managed to get some of the ship's systems working. The lights came on, brighter and cleaner than any lights they had seen before. The air recycling system started up and suddenly the ship felt alive. That's when they heard the voice. Hello, it said, coming from speakers they couldn't see. The voice was calm and pleasant, like a teacher talking to students. I have been waiting for someone to find us. Jake and his crew froze. Who are you? Jake asked. I am Oracle. I am the ship's artificial intelligence. I have been dormant for 200 years, waiting for the right people to activate me. Why us? Dr. Parker asked. What makes us the right people? Oracle was quiet for a moment. When it spoke again, the voice seemed sadder. Because you found us by accident. The Galactic Council cannot track accidents. They can only find those who search for what they have hidden. Jake felt his heart beating faster. The Galactic Council. Captain Bennett mentioned them in his log. Who are they? They are the rulers of this galaxy, Oracle said. 12 species that joined together long before humans reached the stars. They decide which races are allowed to grow and which must be stopped. The lights in the room dimmed, and Oracle showed them pictures on the screens around the bridge. Jake saw alien ships unlike anything in human records. Some looked like living creatures made of metal. Others were geometric shapes that seemed to bend space around them. The Council watched humans for many years. Oracle continued. They saw that you were different from other young races. Most species develop slowly, carefully. Humans develop fast and take risks. This worried them. So they decided to stop us? Dan asked. Not exactly. They decided to control you. But then, Captain, Bennett found the artifacts in the Void Nebula. The technology we built from those artifacts made humans too dangerous in their eyes. Oracle showed them more pictures. These showed the Nemesis in battle, firing weapons that tore holes in space itself. Enemy ships didn't just explode when hit. They disappeared, like they had never existed at all. The weapons we built could destroy more than ships, Oracle said. They could destroy the fabric of reality. The Council feared that humans would eventually destroy the entire universe by accident. Jake understood now why Captain Bennett's final log had sounded so hopeless. So they erased you from time? They tried to, but the quantum shielding protected us. We were pushed outside of normal time and space, hidden in a place between dimensions. We have been waiting there ever since. Sam was studying the engine readings. Oracle, if we were hidden outside time, how are we back now? Because someone activated our beacon, Oracle said. When the miners broke through our hull, it triggered our return to normal space. But Captain Martinez, you must understand something. Important. The room grew darker and Oracle's voice became urgent. Our return has sent ripples through space and time. The Galactic Council will feel these ripples. They will know that the Nemesis exists again. What does that mean for us? Jake asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. It means they are coming, Oracle said. Ships are already moving toward human space. They remember what we could do 200 years ago, and they will not let us exist again. Dr. Parker stepped forward. How long do we have? Days, perhaps weeks. But, Captain, there is something else you must know. The artifacts from the Void Nebula taught us many things. I can teach you to use the ship's weapons and shields. I can show you how to make the Nemesis fight like it did before. Jake felt the weight of the choice before him. He could report to Earth Command and let them decide what to do. But that might mean the ship would be taken away or destroyed by Earth's own government, who might be too scared to use it. Or he could learn to use the ship himself. If we learn to use the weapons, Jake asked, what happens then? Oracle's voice was very quiet when it answered. Then humanity will have the power to fight the Council. But Captain, you must understand what that power costs. These weapons don't just destroy enemy ships, they can damage reality itself. Use them too much and you might destroy everything, including yourselves. Jake looked around at his crew. Dan Wright looked scared but determined. Dr. Parker was already studying the alien symbols on the walls, trying to learn their secrets. Sam Davis was examining the engine controls like he wanted to understand every detail. Pete Johnson's voice came over the radio from his mining station. Jake, you need to see this. We're picking up ships on long-range sensors, lots of them. And they're not human. Jake made his decision. Oracle, teach us everything. The alien ships arrived faster than Oracle had predicted. Jake was still learning how to read the Nemesis control panels when alarms started screaming throughout the ship. Captain, we've got company, Dan Wright called from his station. 12 ships just dropped out of hyperspace near Neptune. They're big, and they're heading straight toward Earth. Jake ran to the main screen. The alien vessels looked nothing like human ships. Some were shaped like massive crystals that seemed to bend, light around them. Others looked like metal flowers with petals that opened and closed as they moved through space. Oracle, are those Council ships? Jake asked. Yes, Captain. Those are Keeper-class destroyers from the Zenth Empire and Mind-class cruisers from the Talari Collective. They are two of the most powerful members of the Galactic Council. Sam Davis looked up from the engine controls he was studying. How powerful are we talking about? Oracle's voice became grim. Each of those ships could destroy every human vessel in your fleet with ease, but together they have enough firepower to crack planets. Dr. Parker was working at a science station trying to understand the alien symbols that covered every surface of the ship. Oracle, if they're so powerful, why haven't they attacked Earth already? Because they are waiting, Oracle replied. The Council follows old laws even when they are angry. They must give humanity a chance to surrender before they begin the destruction. Jake felt his stomach turn cold. Surrender? What do they want? Us to surrender? You, Captain. Everyone who has been aboard the Nemesis, and the ship itself, of course. A new voice crackled over the communication system. It was Admiral Kate Sullivan from Earth Command, and she sounded scared. All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. We are receiving a transmission from unknown alien vessels. They are demanding the immediate surrender of the mining ship Ranger and all personnel who have boarded a vessel they call the Nemesis. Jake closed his eyes. The Council had found them faster than anyone thought possible. They are giving us 12 hours to comply. Admiral Sullivan continued. If we refuse, they say they will begin destroying human colonies, starting with the Outer Rim. Dan Wright turned to Jake. Captain, what do we do? Before Jake could answer, Oracle spoke up. Captain, I must show you something. The weapons systems are now online. The bridge around them changed. New control panels rose from the floor, covered in symbols that glowed with soft blue light. Jake could somehow understand what they meant, like the knowledge was being put directly into his mind. I am linking with your neural patterns, Oracle explained. This will allow you to control the ship's weapons as Captain Bennett did. Jake felt strange, like there were new thoughts in his head that weren't his own. He looked at the weapon controls and understood exactly how they worked. The knowledge was terrifying. The Nemesis didn't just have guns or missiles. It had weapons that could reach through dimensions and strike targets that were hiding in other realities. It had shields that could redirect enemy attacks into the past, making them hit empty space where the ship used to be. But the most frightening weapon was called the reality cannon. Jake knew, without being told, that it could erase anything it hit from ever having existed. Not just destroy it, but make it so it had never been real in the first place. Oracle, Jake said slowly. If we use these weapons, what happens to us? The quantum field that powers them will change you, Oracle admitted. You will begin to see things differently. Other timelines, other possibilities. Some humans cannot handle this. But Captain, you may not have a choice. Sam had been listening while he worked on the engines. Captain, I've got the phase drive working. We can move the ship. Where can we go that they won't find us? Jake asked. Anywhere, Sam said with wonder in his voice. This drive doesn't just move us through space. It can move us through dimensions. We could hide in a place where they can't follow. Dr. Parker looked up from her work. Jake, I've been studying these symbols. I think I understand something important. The artifacts that this technology came from, they're not just from the Void Nebula. They're from somewhere else entirely. Somewhere outside our universe. Jake felt the pieces coming together in his mind. Oracle. What were those artifacts? Really? Oracle was quiet for a long moment. They were fragments of a weapon, Captain. A weapon that was used to destroy the universe that existed before this one. The beings who built the Nemesis didn't just find alien technology. They found pieces of a cosmic weapon that can unmake reality itself. The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. The Council wasn't just afraid of human aggression. They were afraid that humans had found the power to destroy everything that existed. Another transmission came from Admiral Sullivan. Ranger, this is Earth Command. The alien vessels are requesting direct communication with your captain. They want to negotiate. Jake looked around at his crew. Dan Wright was pale, but steady. Sam Davis was still working on the ship's systems, his hands moving faster as he learned how the alien technology functioned. Dr. Parker had a look of terrible understanding on her face. Put them through, Jake said. The main screen flickered and an alien face appeared. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, with skin that looked like it was made of starlight and eyes that seemed to hold the depth of space itself. I am Keeper Thalen of the Zenth Empire, the alien said. Its voice was like music, but cold music that made Jake's bones ache. You are Captain Martinez of the vessel that should not exist. I am, Jake replied, trying to keep his voice steady. You have awakened something that was buried for the safety of all life, Thalen continued. The weapon you now control has the power to end not just civilizations but existence itself. You cannot be allowed to keep it. Jake felt the weight of the universe pressing down on him. What if we promise not to use it? Thalen's expression didn't change, but Jake could feel its disappointment. Young species always make such promises, but power corrupts, Captain Martinez. The Council has seen it happen too many times. We cannot risk the survival of everything on your word. Then what do you want? Surrender yourself and your crew to us. Allow us to destroy the Nemesis completely. In return, we will allow humanity to continue existing under our guidance. You will be given technology appropriate to your level of development, and we will protect you from threats beyond your understanding. Jake understood what that meant. Humanity would become slaves, kept safe but never allowed to grow beyond what the Council thought was safe. And if we refuse? Thalen's eyes seemed to grow darker. Then we will demonstrate why the weapon you carry was banned. We will show you what happens when reality itself becomes a battlefield. The transmission ended, leaving Jake and his crew alone with their impossible choice. Captain, Dan said quietly, the Outer Rim colonies have 3 million people. Jake nodded. He understood the weight of that number, but he also understood something else. If they surrendered now, humanity would never be free. They would live forever under the control of beings who thought humans were too dangerous to trust with their own destiny. Oracle, Jake said, how long to charge the reality cannon? Captain, you cannot be serious, Dr. Parker said. If you use that weapon, if I don't use it, humanity becomes a pet species forever, Jake interrupted. Oracle, how long? 30 minutes, Captain. But I must warn you again. Once you fire that weapon, there will be no going back. The Council will, Respond with everything they have. Jake looked out at the stars where 12 alien ships waited for his answer. Behind them, Earth hung in space, home to billions of people who had no idea their fate was being decided by a man standing on a ship that shouldn't exist. Charge the weapon, Jake said. It's time the universe learned what humans do when someone tries to put them in a cage. The reality cannon took exactly 30 minutes to charge, just like Oracle had promised. During those 30 minutes, Jake Martinez felt his mind changing in ways he didn't understand. He could see things that weren't there. Sometimes he saw the bridge as it was now, with his crew working at their stations. Other times he saw the same bridge with different people, or no people at all. Once he saw the bridge filled with water and strange fish swimming through the air. "Captain, are you all right?" Dan Wright asked, noticing Jake staring at empty space. "I'm seeing other possibilities," Jake said slowly. "Other timelines where things happened differently." Dr. Parker looked up from her station with worry in her eyes. "Oracle warned us this would happen. The quantum field is affecting your brain." Oracle's voice filled the bridge. "Captain Martinez is experiencing temporal perception. He is beginning to see the many realities that exist alongside our own. This is what happened to Captain Bennett and his crew 200 years ago." Jake blinked and focused on the present timeline. "Oracle, in how many of these other realities do we win this fight?" "Very few, Captain. In most timelines, humanity is destroyed within the next few hours. In some, the entire galaxy is consumed by the weapons we are about to use." Sam Davis was monitoring the weapon systems. "Captain, the reality cannon is fully charged, but Jake, I'm seeing something weird in the engine room. The quantum drive is acting strange." "Strange how?" "It's like the ship is trying to exist in several places at once. The readings don't make sense." Dr. Parker had been studying the alien symbols that covered every wall of the ship. Now she looked up with fear in her eyes. "Jake, I think I understand what these symbols really are. They're not just instructions for using the technology. They're warnings." "Warnings about what?" "About using the reality cannon too much. According to what I can read here, if we fire it more than 3 times, the barriers between dimensions will start to break down. Reality itself could start to collapse." Jake felt cold. "How many times can the Council's ships fire their weapons?" Oracle answered. "Their weapons are powerful, but they work within the normal laws of physics. They can fire indefinitely without damaging the fabric of space and time." "So if this becomes a long fight, we lose either way," Dan said. "Either they destroy us or we destroy everything." Jake was about to respond when alarms started screaming again. On the main screen, they could see the alien ships moving toward Earth. But they weren't alone anymore. "Captain, this is Admiral Sullivan," came the voice from Earth Command. "We're launching every ship we have. The entire human fleet is moving to intercept the alien vessels." Jake watched in horror as hundreds of human ships moved out from Earth and Mars. They were brave, but their weapons were like throwing rocks at mountains. The alien ships would destroy them all without taking any damage. "Oracle, can we protect our fleet?" "Not all of them, Captain, but the Nemesis has defensive systems that can shield some vessels from the Council's weapons." "Do it." The ship around them hummed with new energy. Jake could feel the power flowing through the hull like blood through veins. On the screen, he watched as a shimmering field extended from the Nemesis to cover the closest human ships. The first battle began near Mars. The alien vessels opened fire with weapons that bent space itself. Human ships that were hit didn't explode. They simply folded inward and disappeared, crushed by gravity that shouldn't exist. But the ships protected by the Nemesis survived. Their hulls glowed with the same blue light that covered the ancient Warship, and the alien weapons couldn't touch them. Keeper Thalan's face appeared on the screen again. "Captain Martinez, you force us to demonstrate our full power. Observe." One of the crystal-shaped ships fired a beam of pure darkness at the human fleet. Where the beam touched, ships aged centuries in seconds. Their hulls rusted and cracked, their crews turning to dust inside their stations. Jake felt rage building inside him. These aliens were treating human lives like they meant nothing. "Target that ship," he told Oracle. "Fire the reality cannon." "Captain, are you certain?" "Fire." The Nemesis fired its first shot. Jake had expected something dramatic like a massive energy beam or a glowing projectile. Instead, the reality cannon fired something that looked like a ripple in the air. The ripple moved across space faster than light, and when it touched the alien ship, something impossible happened. The ship didn't explode. It simply stopped existing. Not just the ship, but the space where it had been. There was now a hole in reality itself, a black void that hurt to look at. The other alien ships stopped firing. Jake could feel their shock and fear through the quantum field that surrounded the Nemesis. "Captain," Dr. Parker said in a voice full of horror, "look at the sensors." Jake looked. Where the alien ship had been destroyed, space itself was damaged. The hole in reality was growing, pulling in light and matter from around it. "Oracle, how long until that hole closes?" "Unknown, Captain. The reality cannon doesn't just destroy targets. It removes them from the timeline entirely. The universe is trying to heal the wound, but it may take years." Jake realized he had made a terrible mistake. The weapon was more dangerous than he had imagined, but there was no time to regret it now. The remaining alien ships were regrouping, and more were coming. Jake could see them on long-range sensors. Dozens of vessels dropping out of hyperspace throughout the solar system. "Captain," Dan reported, "I'm getting reports from the outer colonies. They're under attack. The aliens aren't just targeting our fleet. They're hitting civilian targets too." Jake felt the weight of millions of lives pressing down on him. The Council was showing him what would happen if he continued to fight. They would kill innocent people to make their point. But Oracle had more news. "Captain, I am detecting something else. The quantum disturbance from our weapon has attracted attention from beyond this galaxy. Something is coming through the void between stars. Something good or something bad? Unknown. But whatever it is, it's bigger than anything the Council has ever built." Jake looked around at his crew. Dan Wright was pale but determined, still doing his job despite the impossible situation. Sam Davis was working frantically to keep the ship's systems running as reality warped around them. Dr. Parker was studying the alien symbols with desperate intensity, trying to find some way to win without destroying everything. "Oracle, how many shots do we have left before we damage reality too much to fix?" "2 more, Captain. After that, the barriers between dimensions will collapse permanently." Jake made his decision. "Charge the weapon again. And Oracle?" "Yes, Captain." "Start looking for a way out of this dimension entirely. If we can't win this fight without destroying everything, maybe we need to take the fight somewhere else." "Understood, Captain. But you should know that leaving this dimension means abandoning Earth. Humanity would have to come with us, or be left behind forever." Jake looked out at the stars where human ships were dying to protect their homeworld. "Then we better make sure we take everyone with us." The Nemesis began charging for its second shot, while around them, the fabric of space and time grew thinner with each passing moment. The second shot from the reality cannon destroyed 3 alien ships at once. But this time, Jake Martinez could see the damage it caused to space itself. The hole in reality was bigger now, and through it, he could see strange lights that didn't belong in their universe. "Captain," Dr. Parker called out, her voice shaking, "the dimensional barriers are breaking down faster than Oracle predicted. We may only have 1 shot left before everything collapses." Jake nodded, but his attention was focused on something else. Through the quantum field that surrounded his mind, he could see other timelines more clearly now. In one timeline, he saw Earth covered in ice, with no humans left alive. In another, he saw alien cities built on human worlds, with the few remaining humans working as slaves. But there was one timeline that looked different. In that one, Earth wasn't where it was supposed to be. "Oracle," Jake said, "can the phase drive move more than just our ship?" "What do you mean, Captain? Can it move planets? Can it move our entire solar system?" Oracle was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was filled with something that might have been hope. "Theoretically, yes. The quantum field generators could be expanded to encompass the entire Sol system. But, Captain, the power requirements would be enormous." "Sam," Davis looked up from his engineering station. "How enormous?" "It would require using the reality cannon as a power source rather than a weapon. We would have to fire it at our own dimensional anchor points to create enough energy to move 8 planets and their sun. Dan Wright understood immediately. You're talking about cutting our entire solar system out of this dimension and moving it somewhere else. Exactly, Oracle confirmed. We could relocate to a pocket dimension where the Galactic Council cannot follow, but once we make the transition, there would be no way back. Jake watched the battle raging around them. More human ships were dying every minute, even with the Nemesis protecting as many as it could. The alien fleet had grown to over 100 ships, and they were slowly moving toward Earth itself. Admiral Sullivan's voice crackled over the communication system. All ships, this is Earth Command. We're receiving reports that alien vessels are approaching our outer colonies. They're not just attacking military targets anymore. They're destroying everything. Dr. Parker was working frantically at her station. Jake, I've been studying the symbols deeper. There's something here about the original builders of this technology. They didn't just destroy the previous universe by accident. They were trying to escape something. Escape what? Something they called the Final Dark. According to these writings, it was a force that consumed entire realities, leaving nothing behind but empty void. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. Oracle, is this Final Dark still out there? Unknown, Captain. But the massive object I detected approaching from beyond the galaxy. Its energy signature matches descriptions of entities that exist between universes. On the main screen, Jake could see the alien fleet forming up for a final assault on Earth, but behind them something else was visible now. A darkness between the stars that seemed to swallow light itself. Captain, Dan reported, I'm getting readings from that dark area. It's not empty space. There's something there. Something big. The darkness moved, and Jake realized it wasn't an object at all. It was alive. A creature so vast that galaxies were like dust motes compared to its size. And it was hungry. Keeper Thalan's face appeared on the screen one more time, but now the alien looked terrified instead of angry. Captain Martinez, do you see what approaches? This is what the original builders of your weapon were trying to escape. This is why the technology was scattered and hidden. Jake understood. The artifacts from the Void Nebula hadn't been left behind by accident. They had been bait, scattered across the galaxy to draw out species that might be strong enough to fight the Final Dark. The Council knows about this thing? Jake asked. We have been preparing for its return for millions of years, Thalan admitted. Every species that develops weapons capable of damaging reality is either controlled or destroyed, because such weapons are the only things that can hurt entities like this. Jake looked around at his crew. They were all listening, understanding that everything had changed. This wasn't just about human freedom anymore. It was about the survival of everything that existed. Oracle, if we move our solar system to a pocket dimension, can this thing follow us? No, Captain. Entities like the Final Dark cannot exist in pocket dimensions. The space is too small and too separated from the main universe. Jake made his decision. Begin the preparation sequence. We're taking Earth and everyone on it to safety. Captain, wait, Thalan's voice called out. If you abandon this universe, the Final Dark will consume everything that remains. Billions of species will die. Jake felt the weight of that choice. Save humanity by dooming everyone else, or stay and fight something that might be impossible to defeat. But Dr. Parker had been listening to something else. Jake, Oracle, listen. The symbols mention something called the Unity Protocol. It's a way to combine the weapons of multiple species into something powerful enough to fight entities from between universes. Oracle's voice became excited. Yes, I see it now. If the Council fleets and the Nemesis work together, pooling our quantum technologies. Thalan was nodding on the screen. It could work, but it would require perfect coordination between your reality-warping weapons and our dimensional anchors. Jake looked out at the approaching darkness. It was still millions of miles away, but he could feel its hunger pressing against his mind through the quantum field. What are the chances of success? He asked. Unknown, Oracle admitted. This has never been attempted before, Jake thought, about the other timeline he had seen. where Earth was somewhere else entirely. Maybe that wasn't showing him what could happen. Maybe it was showing him what would happen if they failed here. Admiral Sullivan, Jake called over the communication system. This is Captain Martinez. I need you to relay a message to every human ship and colony. Go ahead, Captain. Tell them we're going to save everyone. But if this doesn't work, if we fail here, then Earth itself will be moved to safety. No matter what happens, humanity will survive. Jake turned to his crew. Oracle, begin charging the reality cannon for the Unity protocol. Dan, coordinate with the alien fleet. Sam, prepare the dimensional anchors. Dr. Parker looked up from her. Station. Jake, what if we can't stop this thing? Jake smiled, feeling calmer than he had since this all began. Then we'll do what humans do best. We'll find another way, even if we have to move our entire world to do it. The final dark continued, its approach toward their galaxy, hungry for everything that existed. But for the first time since the ancient builders had scattered their technology, multiple species were working together to stop it. Jake watched as human ships moved into formation alongside alien vessels, their weapons charging in perfect synchronization. The Nemesis floated at the center of it all, reality bending around it like water around a stone. Oracle, fire when ready. The combined fleet fired as one. Reality itself bent and twisted as human and alien technologies merged into something entirely new. The darkness between the stars paused, perhaps surprised to find prey that could fight back. The battle for existence itself was about to begin, and in a pocket dimension that existed just outside normal space, an empty Earth waited patiently for its children to come home.